We are just about to end the non-conference schedule for UConn. One last game against Gonzaga before they start off Big East play. So who better to have on than John Fanta? So John, thanks so much for hopping on again.
Jared, it's great to be with you and for the Yukon Huskies and their fan base, a sigh of relief after this past week brought better results and significantly better play. They tweaked some things in a 2-0 week. That was huge. That's a
Yeah.
that's a big trajectory point for this team to start heading back in the direction that they're used to.
So I know not everyone who listens was at our Let's Talk Ball event that we had back in October, but when we talked with the panel with you, John Rothstein, Andy Katz, we talked a little bit about this non-conference schedule, and you predicted that they might lose a game or two. Were you surprised by the way they did lose a few games here, though, early on in the non-conference?
Well, I thought they would make the Maui final because I really like their draw. And when you think about it, I still think things go differently if they eke out the win over Memphis. And I
Yeah,
think they could
sure.
have made. I thought that they could have made the final, and then I think they would have lost to Auburn. I thought that was what was going to happen in the first place.
Mhm.
And then obviously things went sideways. It's basketball. You have no time to work on anything during Maui. You can't tweak things overnight. You need a couple of days of practice to do that. So it was a disaster. It just was, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But the way this program's been humming the last couple of years, 47-3 in their last 50 games, heading into that event, I guess you're due for a cold spell of some sort. And they unfortunately had it there, and they swallowed their lumps. But the way that Dan Hurley built out this non-conference schedule was very smart because there's windows. There were windows to get things back on the right track. And so it turned out to be good that they played Maryland Eastern Shore without Caravan,
Yeah.
that they experienced a game without him before then playing Baylor without him. And this team grew up a lot. And I thought that they needed the first four games to get into Maui. And Maui was an eye opener. And I know a lot of people are like, well, should have scheduled a high major before Maui or should have challenged themselves. I wouldn't have done it much of a different way. I think that things just happened where they got exposed. It was a reality check, and a younger team with players who still haven't reached their peak, like Solomon Ball and Jalen Stewart, and obviously Mahaney.
Yeah.
But these guys haven't reached their peak performance yet this season. And Jared, perhaps in their career, for guys who are going to be back and who are going to return, it's a long career. Terrace Reed too.
For
Like
sure.
he's just getting going. So you're going to see the development piece happen with this team. The development piece that Dan Hurley, that Luke Murray, that Kamani Young, that Tom Moore have become great at. Was I surprised? I think we all were shocked that they lost three in a row. But I would say it's as eye-opening as ever to your culture and who you are as a program that you went 2-0 this past week. You
Yeah.
beat a good Baylor team. And Baylor, yeah, they didn't have VJ Edgecombe. UConn didn't have their best player. But on Sunday, we saw a guy in Alex Caravan. I don't know if there's a better player that fits Dan Hurley in terms of just doing everything right. Like Cam
Mhm.
Spencer comes to mind, but then Alex Caravan, when he walks out of the doors of Connecticut, will have left an incredible legacy on the place.
For sure. I want to know one more thing just coming out of Maui before we kind of dive into what's next and look at the team a little bit. But you're on all these podcasts, on these shows. Were you surprised at all about the Dan Hurley discourse coming out of Maui? Because as someone who like you, I'm sure has watched plenty of Dan Hurley, it wasn't anything new to us, but it seems like it picked up legs that it necessarily hasn't in the past.
It did pick up legs because he's the most compelling figure in the sport. He's the face of the sport. He is. If college basketball had a coaching face, it would be him. Full stop. He's great for the sport too. Like this brought out debate. It brought out takes. Sports are better when there's things to debate on and talk about in this current climate, Jared. Hence the Soto news of
Yeah.
Sunday night. Like it. And I know you're shaking your head, but like it creates more drama, creates more stuff. Look, Dan in the first game of Maui made a mistake in the game. He's a human. He's a human being like you and me. I make mistakes every hour, every day. Right? We get one thing once in a while. We get something right.
Yeah.
I think a guy who's won at the degree he's won at can be afforded a mistake. Um, in terms of like generalizing this and saying that he's got to have a he's got to fix stuff massively and do things totally different. It's part of who he is. It's part of what makes his teams great. Like nobody's saying go and berate the refs. He has a style. He has a way. The refs understand that. That's why they don't just tee him up. They know
Everything.
Dan. They know the coaches. Dan Hurley is a hell of a coach. And Dan Hurley deserves all the success that he's got. Yes, I think if he could have the closing moments of the Memphis game back, he would. He would want them back, and he would probably do things differently. So many coaches would want moments back. This discourse on it that it's embarrassing and unacceptable and inexcusable and all that, come on, man. Child, please. Child, please. Get out of here with that. That's a hot load of garbage. Who am I to hand out judgment of anybody? Worry about yourself. Some of the analysts nationwide cross the line
For
by
sure.
analyzing behavior. Worry about yourself. Did he make a mistake? Yeah, but you don't have to generalize it and then dwell on it and say that it's horrible and bad and this and that. People go off the deep end on this stuff. It was ridiculous, the discourse on it. It went across the line.
That's basically where I came down on it. You want to have a conversation about it. Hey, was it a play at that time that could have cost them things
Yeah.
like that? You want to talk about that? That's one thing, but to go take things to the next level that they were taken to, I was certainly a little bit surprised by a guy who's been praised pretty much for the past couple of years here. So yeah, just had to hit you on that on the Maui point before we move on a little bit. As you look at this UConn team, I'm curious to get your thoughts as we look at the roster a little bit. There were a lot of expectations placed on these guys coming back, especially that sophomore class there to make that jump. What have you seen from that group early on here as they get ready for Big East play?
Well, every time the ball leaves Solo Ball's hands, I think it's going to go in. I really do.
Sweet stroke.
He just is a ridiculous shot maker, and it's so smooth. I mean, it's the best. This is the best compliment I can give. It's Ray Allen-esque
Yeah.
in terms of automatic. I mean, ability to make it. I thought Jaden Ross would be better to this point. I'm a little bit surprised that he's kind of gone quiet in some games. Jared feels like a great athlete
Mhm.
that's trying to figure out how to translate it fully into basketball.
Yeah,
You know,
for
fully
sure.
into to what it takes to execute the little things in the game and the scoring piece and all that. But I still like Jaden quite a bit. Jalen Stewart was a revelation at Maui. Nobody saw that coming. I don't even know if the staff saw that coming, but that was something. And the kid from Seattle has skill, game, finesse, shot making, can attack the rim, long, so he can defend. I really like Jalen Stewart. I think the sophomore class is in a fine place with Ball being the headliner because for
Mhm.
this UConn team, for what they lost defensively, they're going to have to make up for on offense
Yeah.
against the elite. They're just going to have to score at times. They got a lot better defensively in the last week. They guarded better. I think they communicated better, and they rotated correctly. And you got to remember at Maui, Jared, I don't know how you felt, but I felt it watching UConn play these teams. One, they're going to get everybody's best shot.
Yep.
And two, shots fall at Maui that don't fall in other places.
Yeah. I think the three teams shot like 60% from three or so against UConn. Yeah. And it
Like,
wasn't all because of defensive issues or anything.
yeah, some of it was a ball has a
Yeah.
fortunate bounce that goes in. But look, UConn got bounces too.
Yep.
No question about it. I'm not trying to make excuses. I think the sophomore class is in a fine place. I think this team is a good team. I ranked them 21st last night. They're ranked 18th in the AP. When I ranked them 21st, I had a couple people in my mentions saying you ranked them too low. You're a hater. Some people aren't even ranking them. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. That's clown show behavior. Some people that I work with, and it is. I mean, I've told them to their faces. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to not rank UConn. I think they're a top 20 team. Do I think they're a top 10 team on their best day? Maybe. But you have to back it up. The reason I have UConn fans saying, "Why did you rank them that low?" They're ranked. Like take the ranking. They went 0-3 in Maui, folks. There's a lot of programs who still wouldn't be ranked. UConn's built up a national perception that they're one of the best programs in the country, if not the best. So they are ranked. Beat Gonzaga, then they're back in my top 15.
Looking to add some local flavor to your lineup? Martin Rosel's is the MVP of your game day spread and a slam dunk for any occasion. Proudly made in hard-hit New Britain, their famous kielbasa and hot dogs have been a fan favorite for over 96 years. You can find their products in grocery stores across the state or have them delivered directly to your home court, coast to coast, via martinrosel.com. Take your taste buds to the championship and go support a UConn fan-owned business. Yeah. What impressed you the most about what you saw from this team over the past week since they've been back from Maui and putting together two really good wins, at home against Baylor and then going on the road to Texas?
Well, they defended much better. They did a good job rebounding the ball as well. I mean, against Texas, they out rebounded Texas 39-25. They out rebounded Texas on the road by 14. Alex Caravan was a grown man with the 11 rebounds. Liam McNeely's a terrific rebounder. So, for this team, do they have the Klingon or Sonogo type? No. But they have such great wing play that just really sticks out, that allows them to play smaller and make shots. And they hit 9 threes in the win over Texas. They did give up 8 threes. Their perimeter defense still needs some work. But I thought against Baylor, the second half against Baylor was the best defensive half Connecticut's played. They locked up Baylor from beyond the arc, 6 for 17 overall. Baylor certainly didn't help themselves at the free throw line. But, the thing about this UConn team is, like I said, they can beat you in different ways offensively. They can score the ball in so many different ways. And so when you can get to the free throw line like they did 33 times against Baylor, against Texas 16 times, they actually allowed more fouls against Texas. But the ball movement on Sunday night.
Yeah.
The unsung hero of the game is Hassan Diarra. He had 11 assists.
Yeah.
11 assists to 2 turnovers. That's Haas making the right read, finding McNeely, finding Caravan, making the right play. Their basketball instincts are as good as any in the country offensively. For them, it's just doing enough on the interior. Like, they don't have to be they're not world beaters on the interior this year. They're just not. But when Terrace Reed gives them some steady offense, and Samson Johnson does enough, it kind of gets them into that next gear, because you have to account for that defensively, but then you can give up threes. Remember last night, Texas gets within about 8, and UConn's trying to figure it out, and they swing the ball around, and Solo Ball hits that corner 3. At that moment, I'm watching the game, I'm like, Connecticut's going to win this game.
Yeah. No. I think one of the differences to me when you look at this team from Maui, a guy that I think they need to produce is Samson Johnson and stay in the game, stay out of foul trouble. These past 2 games in particular against Baylor and Texas, it seems like he's taken his game to another level, both offensively, defensively. What have you seen from him, and what do you think UConn needs to see out of him going forward to have the success they want to have?
I think for Samson, number one, you got to stay out of foul trouble. You got to have verticality. Number 2, got to be able to slip off screens and go to the rim to be a rim runner.
Mm-hmm.
He's best when he's a rim runner. He really is. He is so explosive. They got to get back to that. They got to get back to the Samson Johnson we saw last year against Texas at the Garden.
Yeah.
When he was rocking the rim and when he was running off screens. I mean, he had 25 points combined in the wins this past week, so that's big too. I thought he did a very nice job this past week at contributing. He can't be quiet in these games. At Maui, he was mostly quiet. They got to get back to feeding him on the run, though, Jared.
Yeah.
Use him in the way that UConn plays basketball, which is off-ball movement rules. Yeah. He's elite off the ball moving. When you get him on the run going towards the rim, you throw it up to him on the lobs. You're not going to be able to just post him up like a traditional post.
Right.
But you can get it to him going towards the basket to lay it up and in, to get him in situations where he's positionally in a good place to rebound the ball and stick it back. But a better week for Samson.
Yeah.
The win over Baylor, he came out and was big and setting the tone of the game and really making Norchad Omier guard him and making his life harder. Stay out of foul trouble. Because you and I both know in March, they're going to call the games tighter.
Yeah.
he gets in early foul trouble, it impacts the game negatively for Connecticut. So he's got to keep his focus on that. And, sometimes it's okay to give up an easy or two. If it means you stay on the floor and avoid fouls, then give up an and one foul. Now you're in trouble. Also, it's a two-pointer.
Yeah.
Twos are less than threes. It's okay, Samson, to just dial it back a little bit to preserve yourself for the game. But a
Yeah.
good week for Samson Johnson. What he's just got to keep focusing on the little things, because when he's locked in on the little things, everything else comes into place, and he is a very good player.
So I want to throw back a little bit. We're talking 2 years ago. You're on this podcast. Tristan Newton in a little bit of a rut, not quite comfortable
Yeah.
in his fit with this UConn offense. You come on the podcast. You give a little pep talk, saying you still believe in Tristan Newton, and we know what happened from then on. He was a star here. What does Aiden Mahaney need to do to get himself on track here at UConn? And you got a little pep talk in it for him.
Keep headbutting Dan Hurley. Keep keep the intensity up. Play loose. Oh, play like the great guard you are, because the WCC, a lot of people were like, well, the WCC, the Big East, different level. Yes, it is. But St. Mary's played stiff competition.
Yeah.
And Gonzaga's in their league. And last I checked, Aiden Mahaney was the most outstanding player of the WCC tournament and had to beat Gonzaga to be that. Aiden Mahaney, you're here for a reason. You're at Connecticut for a reason. That reason is to be the next great UConn guard, because that's the only way UConn guards think.
Hmm.
Look at what you did against Baylor. You knocked down a couple of big threes. You got that crowd going. You made the right reads. Are there things to work on? Yes. Defensively, you've got to not be a liability and be stiff, be tough, be firm in how you guard. On the offensive end of the floor, you do possess feel. You do. Stop getting lost in the textbook and start getting lost in the fight.
Oh, I like that. I like that one, John. There you go.
Stop getting lost in the textbook and start getting lost in the fight. And as much as Dan Hurley's system is very intricate and hard to learn and not easy, and if it was that easy, everybody would do it. When you overthink it on the floor, people see it.
Hmm.
Just play. Use what got you to this stage and relish in the role that, like you did against Baylor, and good things are going to happen for you, Aiden Mahaney.
There we go. I like it. And you know what? I think this is perfect because we'll get this out there before the Gonzaga game. We've seen what he's done against Gonzaga, and we'll see it take off from there. So, John, thank you for the pep talk there.
Familiar with him. That familiarity's got to help. It really should.
Give me a key to that matchup on Saturday against Gonzaga if UConn's going to take him down at MSG.
Well, you can't let Ryan Nembhard dictate the game. The ball's on a string when he's got it. And then you got to be prepared to guard Graham Ike. I mean, Graham Ike torched Kentucky in the first half on Saturday night. He had a double-double at halftime. So you've really got to guard Ike and get on the glass. You can't let their shooters get open looks from three. So when Hickman and Dusty Stromer's going to let it fly. Braden Huff to a degree. Defensively, you're obviously in for a war. You've got to be able to account for them, but it starts at the head of the snake. If
Hmm.
you let Ryan Nembhard dictate the way the game's getting played, you will lose. You will lose, especially when on the other side, UConn's point guard play has been up and down.
Yeah.
So the point guard battle is crucial. The glass is crucial as well. You got to hold them to one shot. They're a tremendous offensive team. My focus is on the defensive end of the floor, because when Kentucky started to get stops, the game changed.
Yeah.
Remember, Gonzaga still scored 89 points. But at some point, it's because they scored 50 in the first half.
Yeah.
In the ensuing 25 minutes, they scored 39. Yeah, 39. So that's a big difference there. It is. So you've got to make it a physical UConn style game and make them work for what they get. But if you don't contain dribble penetration, you're going to give up open looks. It starts with containing Ryan Nembhard.
This episode is sponsored by 22 Threads. Check out their new stores, New Haven of Beats, and Nutmegger Golf collections on 22threads.com. guess if you had to probably pick an opponent on this schedule in the non-conference to have a week off as you get ready for it,
Big time.
I think this is the one you'd have circled and be very happy you got that week.
Great game. So glad these two teams are playing this game. So glad they did this. They should continue to re-up this series. I think it's terrific for the sport. Obviously, for UConn fans, it helps uh, when you went out to
Seattle.
that was in Seattle or in Spoke. It was in
In
Seattle.
Seattle, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just at like the Spokane arena
Yeah,
like Kentucky played them that one time. Yeah, when you go out to Seattle and beat them, it helps when you now get them back in New York. But look, that's got to be stored south. Like
yeah,
UConn fans have got to make that a hell for Gonzaga. It'll be the majority of the building will be UConn fans. It's a huge game, but this is where Connecticut. Just how much have they grown defensively? We're going to find out Saturday night.
yeah. John, how much of an over or underreaction do you take to this game Saturday, depending on this result? If UConn loses, is it back to sky is falling like it was after
No,
Maui?
no, no. I don't think so. I mean,
Agreed,
you come off this game and you know that you've got Xavier then in the Big East opener. And I kind of came into this stretch saying they got to go 2-1
yeah.
against Baylor, Texas, and Gonzaga. Well, they got two.
I got two, so yeah,
If they win this game, it's back to life is good, and this team can do anything that they want to, and they're in a really good place. And let's go into the Big East. If you lose this game, conference opener against Xavier is a game you really would like to have.
for sure.
Remember this: Xavier got humiliated last year against UConn, humiliated at the XL Center on a Sunday. And if I'm correct, this game's at XL too.
Yeah, XL on a Wednesday night. Yep,
Big game. I mean, Xavier has a stretch coming up where they've got Morgan State that they'll win that game. Then they've got Cincinnati at Cincinnati, at UConn, home Marquette.
Oof.
And if I'm and from Xavier's perspective, they're kind of looking at it being like, we got to find a way to get two because we're 7-2. Our metrics aren't great right now. The other thing is like for Connecticut though, I don't think the sky would be falling if you lose to Gonzaga. I think it's good to get your weaknesses exposed now,
yeah,
not in February.
agreed.
And the league, the Big East, has a couple of teams that can give UConn problems, but UConn's still better than almost all of the league on paper. They really are. Marquette deserves to be one. UConn St. John's, we're going to have to settle it on the basketball court, but UConn's still better than everybody else in this league on paper. They really are. And so for them, that's why winning at Texas was encouraging because they did it on the road. It was
For sure.
big in front of a good crowd. Sky's not falling if they lose. I actually kind of think it's a bit of a house money game because you've won the first two. If you
Agreed.
win, if you win the game, though, it's huge. But be competitive. If you get blown out, then I'll be concerned.
Yeah.
They're not getting blown out in the garden.
Yeah, no. As you talk Big East a little bit, we could just kind of wrap with that. Your thoughts on the state of the league at this point as we get ready for the conference play to start. I know it hasn't had the best showing. The past week had certainly been better for the league. Where do you think it kind of stands right now at this point, a week away from conference play starting?
Well, I think that this is a league right now that needs to look at their scheduling model in the off season because here's how I put it. So Marquette played a top 50 schedule on KenPom, non-conference. If they would have lost another game, let's just say they lost to Wisconsin on Saturday. You and I would still be sitting here saying Marquette's in really good shape. They're really good. They're the best team in the league. They benefited from playing all those games. Guess what? They won. They won almost all of them, except Iowa State, which they don't control. They went to Iowa State. Guess how many teams beat Iowa State names last year?
Yeah, not many. Zero.
Not one. And that's in the Big 12. Marquette's in terrific shape. They could make a Final Four. That's how good Cam Jones is the best player in college basketball today. He is. And if he's not one, then he's two to Janai Broome. St. John's should have beat Baylor. Had they beat Baylor, we're talking about them differently right now. Jared, I think they're loaded with talent. I mean, they could play through Kadari Richmond. They could play through R.J. Lewis. They could play through Davon Smith. Zuby Ejiofor's a beast. If they package it all together, when they do, scary. On Saturday, it was a 2-minute run against Kansas State. The game was over. They went on like a 12-2 run. That was the game. It's the difference in the game. You got to keep them from the avalanche kill shot. Evan Maya,
Yeah.
kill shot. UConn, very very good team. So you got a top three. You have three in the top 15 of KenPom.
Yep.
After that, I think this is a 4 or 5 bid league. If they get five, I'll call it a fine year.
Yeah.
Five is solid. You're an 11-team league. You're playing a numbers game. The SEC has had a historically great start to the year, the best non-conference season by a league since 1996, with a winning percentage of 87%. Unbelievable. I look at this league, though. Look at Butler, who lost to Austin P. Jared.
Yeah.
Got crushed by Houston. Many teams get killed by Houston in Houston. Look at their margin of victory. You'll see. Butler still played Mississippi State, Northwestern, SMU. This week they're playing Wisconsin.
Yeah.
If they beat Wisconsin, even with a loss to Austin P, they'll still be on the radar more than a Georgetown or a DePaul
Yep.
or others in this league because they
They
played
played something.
people.
Yeah.
Playing people gets rewarded. So I don't know how good or bad DePaul is because they haven't played anyone, with the exception of Texas Tech. But like the majority of teams that play at Texas Tech are going to lose to them. I know Georgetown is not great, but like Thomas Sorber was very, very sick ahead in the Notre Dame game. It was going to be a disaster. I called the game. I knew going in the game, this is probably not going to go well for Georgetown. They don't have their best player. Sorber's really good. Georgetown competes for 30 minutes against West Virginia. Then things fall apart. What if you scheduled another marquee game and you won it?
Yeah.
You have to challenge yourselves. Villanova, early struggles. Look at them in the metrics right now. They're top 5 in the Big East in metrics because they played people and they've blown a couple teams out. Is Villanova a great team? I'm not saying they are. But in the league, for the overall health of the league,
That's what you need.
you need that. Creighton, you think Creighton will be an NCAA tournament team? I think so. Even without Isaacs. I trust McDermott. I think they'll find their way in. Might be in an 8-9 game. Might be a 10. But they're going to find their way in most likely. Xavier really need to beat Cincinnati or Marquette at home over the next Marquette at home the 21st. But Xavier can get in. Beyond that, Providence has been a failure.
Yep.
Seton Hall's been abysmal. But the bottom of the league is better this year than it was last year. Now let's see if some teams can package together critical results. I think Xavier at Cincinnati is huge on Saturday. I think DePaul's got a big week hosting Providence and then hosting Wichita State. If they could ever go 2-0, Jared, we have to have an honest conversation about DePaul at 9-1.
Yeah, for sure.
Never thought we'd be saying those words, but we would be. Butler is playing Wisconsin in downtown Indy. What if Butler beats Wisconsin? Then I think we're having an honest conversation about them. The league is better. But if you're a bubble team in this league, you can't just go 500 in the Big East. You got to go 12. You got to go 12-8 or 13-7 this year.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see.
I say 3 locks: Marquette, St. John's, UConn. I don't think St. John's is missing the tournament. I think they're that good. I think beyond that, it becomes a question. But I think 4 or 5 will make it. That's just my 2 cents.
No, I think it's a very fair depiction of the league right now. So, John, as always, I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll have to have you on again closer to March, and we'll go from there. But, John, enjoy the start of conference play and have fun out there.
Anytime, Jared. Love the Connecticut scoreboard. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Thanks.